Thank you, Mary Beth. And again, I apologize, helicopter traffic, but it'll kind of set the tone for our meeting on Afghanistan. And I spent 33 years total in the military from enlistment to retirement, and retired as a lieutenant colonel. I only spent about 3 years in Afghanistan, not 20, but I spent pretty much the majority of my career overseas. So Korea, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait, Germany, a little time in Syria, and a few other places. So I've got quite a bit of traveling under my belt, and I will tell you that Afghanistan became near and dear to my heart. The people there are so kind and so wonderful, and the country is just so beautiful. It's amazing. The culture is very rich, and they have an ancient culture. So I look forward to talking to you a little bit about it. My job, as Mary Beth said, I did communications and intelligence. So the communications piece was I put in communications all over the country. So as a communications officer for the special ops was who I was supporting. I got to go to all of the provinces, and I had 127 locations at one time that I had to go around and check. So because of that, I got to see the entire country, literally the whole thing. I also did a little bit of intelligence with the females in Afghanistan. We pulled in a bunch of female officers and higher enlisted to go in and speak to the female population of Afghanistan, so that our males are not allowed to talk to the females, even under the U.S. occupation. And I will call it an occupation because technically that's what it is, or what it was. But under our occupation, we tried to open that up a little more females in school, more females in work, and more females pursuing professions. But one thing where they drew the line, they as in the Afghan men, was you're not talking to our females. And so that's fine. So but that cuts out 50% of the intelligence. So when we're trying to figure out what's going on with the Taliban and where they are and Al-Qaeda and all of that, not being able to talk to the females was detrimental to the mission. So the military, the U.S. military, put together a joint effort of many different service females. We all learned a little bit of Pashto, or a little bit of Dari, or a little bit of whatever, depending on which area we were going to go into. And we went in and tried to befriend, and then we gathered intelligence. Okay, so that was interesting. That got me to the point where I got to see how the women live, kind of behind the curtain. So that said, this is a presentation on the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. So as of 15 August to 21, it is no longer the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. It is back to the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. And this is what the Taliban used to call the country back in the early 2000s, late 1990s. And so unfortunately, we're back there again. All right, I want to show just a couple changes that happened just with that one shift. So this flag, I don't know if you can see my mouse. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. Can you see the mouse moving? Okay, great, thank you. So this black, red, and green flag is what we would recognize as the traditional Afghani flag. Okay, this is the flag under which I served with the Afghan National Army, and serving with them to help support them in all the training that we did for them. And then the Taliban came back in, and you may recognize this bit of Arabic script. Okay, so this is not a design. These are actually words. Okay, this says something. Arabic is read right to left, so it starts on this side, you read to the left. So this particular piece of Arabic calligraphy is called the Shadada, and that is the fifth pillar of Islam. And it speaks like this. It says, "I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger." Okay, that's what this flag says. So if we were ever hoping for separation of church and state in Afghanistan, it's definitely not happening. Okay, this is their flag. And down here, then, this is the new coat of arms for the Taliban, or for the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Okay, so the purpose here, I just want to run through some, I know you're probably seeing I got 30 slides. Most of them are pictures because Mary Beth and Sandra and I talked about that. Pictures speak 1,000 words. So I wanted to give you more pictures to help convey about the situation in Afghanistan, what their culture is like, how their geography and their and all of the contributing factors contribute to the unique culture of Afghanistan, and then of course parlay that into how we can best help them when they get here, understanding a little bit of where they come from. So please stop me at any time if you have any questions. All right. Okay, I will try the mouse. There we go. All right, topics of discussion. We're going to burn through these pretty quick. So we've got geography. We'll touch on it briefly, but it's extremely important to understanding why the culture developed as it did. Demographics, the economy, the infrastructure. Moving on, we'll dig into culture, a few of the areas of culture that I know you had questions about, and then questions and discussion. But we can always stop for questions and discussion whenever you like. All right, we'll start with geography. So Afghanistan is at a very unique place on the traditional Silk Road. It's a very strategic location. So it's exactly at the crossroads of Central and South Asia. So when we say Middle East, it's right on the edge of that Middle East and East. Okay, so it's the 41st largest country. It's about the size of Texas. Okay, that's not a very big country when you consider all of the culture that is packed into that one small little area. But it's a country, it's not a state. All right, so it's about 252,000 square miles. It's a pretty good sized place, and it's landlocked. So all the way around it, you have nothing, with the exception of a little reservoir down here. You basically have no way to get out other than to go through somebody else's territory. So you're surrounded by 6 countries. We're going to start with them. They're all part of the Islamic Brotherhood. So we're going to start on the west side. This is Iran. Then you go up to the northwest, you got Turkmenistan. Directly to the north is Uzbekistan. To the northeast is Tajikistan. Now, this tiny little blurb here in the corner, it doesn't show it on my map, but that's China. Okay, and there's a 57 mile border between Afghanistan and China right there. And then the rest of, go back, sorry, my mouse. I'll blame it on the mouse. And then the rest of this entire borders with Pakistan. So when we're hearing on the news right now about how Afghanis are desperate to get out of Afghanistan, they're trying to go into Pakistan, this is why. Half the country borders Pakistan, and there's no way to cover all of this. Although I will tell you, this terrain down in here is pretty nasty. The area they're probably trying to go through is right here, the Khyber Pass. Okay, so they're surrounded by the 6 countries. Now Afghanistan consists of 34 provinces. Okay, so provinces are to Afghanistan like states are to the United States. Okay, these provinces that you see here, these different colored areas like Herat and Farah and Helmand and Kandahar and Paktika and on, these are like states to them. These have different characteristics, different terrains, and certainly different things that they do within each of those. So for military people going over there, and I had to learn the differences between all of these because I had operations in every single one of these provinces. So going to the different provinces, you had to kind of sit and study for a little while. If you were going to, Bamyan province, which is way up in the mountains, you had to do a little bit of studying, a little bit of research to make sure that you understood kind of where you were going. All right. Afghanistan has 31.4 million people as of the 2020 count, and Kabul right now is their capital right here. But Taliban took over, and their spiritual headquarters is Kandahar. So I'm not sure what will happen in terms of a capital. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do with that. All right, I'm going to keep going. Oh, any questions? Okay, I thought I heard some. I'm going to go through the terrain piece of this. This is geography, but a little more into the actual terrain piece because this is important. So let's look at this key elevation map down here. Anything brown is 10,000 feet or higher. All right, and then your 5,000 feet is your dark green. 2,000 feet, that's more like the steppe area. That's the light green. And then the gray green is 1,000. That's great growing land for growing things, actually the lighter green, and then down into a severe hot desert. Okay, so it goes everything from absolutely freezing up in the Central Highlands, freezing all year round, and the Hindu Kush, which I got to hike, by the way. That was awesome. And I had to take a team of SEALs with me, but it was great. And all the way down into extreme desert up here on the border with Turkmenistan. Okay. So you've got where you see the populace setting up is in places where they can grow things. And we'll talk about agriculture a little later on and how important that is to the economy of Afghanistan. But you see Kabul right here on this, on what is basically the foothills of the Hindu Kush and the Central Highlands, and it just makes for some amazing geographic terrain and beauty. Okay, it's one of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen, and I've seen 80 countries, and I can tell you that Afghanistan's in the top 5 in terms of the beauty, just the natural beauty. All right, so we're going to look at some of those pictures now. Pictures speak, say 1,000 words, so I want you to see just how gorgeous this country is. Okay, this photo is an excellent example of highlands, lowlands, and upper steppe. Okay, so what you can see here are the highlands way up here, and then you got your lowlands, right? These are low mountains. And then you have a valley through here that's identified by its greenery, but there's water running through there. There's got to be, because you've got a lot of green in there, and you get the melt off from the mountains. But what you also have down here is a perfectly level, flat place to grow things. And if you look and see how they parcel off their space to grow, you know, they in certain circumstances, they will build things around certain parcels. Like this right here is a compound. This is a family compound. It's surrounded entirely by a mud hut, by a mud wall, and more than likely the buildings within there are made out of mud as well. Okay, so this is a poor area, but it's rich for agricultural purpose. And it's nice and flat. You've clearly got good waterways going. Look at all these trees. Okay, so a lot of people, when they think Afghanistan, they just think desert, but that's absolutely not true. Okay, so that's one picture. Going on about water, this is down in the Helmand region. Okay, Helmand is very far down to the south. This is the Tajik Dam. And this is one way that Afghanistan is creating energy for itself. This is the Helmand River. And as it flows, it creates hydroelectric power, and that power gets distributed back out to Afghanistan. So this, and you can see right up next to the river, you've got lush, green, beautiful areas for growing. This area down in Helmand is particularly well suited for growing saffron because of the arid nature of the air, of the environment. It's also very well suited for growing opium and poppies, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so this is one indicator, and this dam is actually on the border. This reservoir is actually on the border with Iran too, so they share in the electric on that. Another area down in Helmand is the Red Mountains. When we start talking about natural resources, Afghanistan is rich in natural resources that come out of the earth. You know, the precious and semi-precious metals, all of the earth, the things that you can pull out of the earth. What you're seeing here is primarily copper and iron ore. Okay, and it's solid. It's solid. You've got a lot of it there. Okay, so the DoD. Let's let him fly by. Okay, the DoD actually went in and estimated the raw materials within the earth of Afghanistan be worth approximately $1 trillion. So that's a lot of money. And I hope that there is some way someday in Afghanistan's future that they can find a way to sustainably harvest those wonderful resources and create a better life for themselves in Afghanistan. I really do. All right, so let's take a trip up to the northwest. Does it look like Ireland? This is northwest Afghanistan. Okay, so this is off to this is the Green Hills in the Faryab province up in the northwest. Again, you're talking about a completely different environment up there. Again, we're talking about a country the size of Texas. Okay, so, and when you're looking at all these different terrain features and all these different environments, you literally have every single one of them right in this one country. And then you go further north, and now we see things that we typically associate with Afghanistan. Okay, beautiful desert, desert area. I love the look of the desert, but this is severe North Desert. Okay, and the way we know that is they're not growing anything. Okay, there's nothing green in this picture, so they just simply can't. There's not enough water, but when you look at how they've built out their houses are very neat and clean. So they must do something else up here to produce. They're probably doing some sort of mining, or they're doing some sort of weaving or some sort of other way to produce to make money, but it's not agriculture. Okay, so any questions about those? All right, we're going to burn through real quick the climate. I think you get the picture. The higher you are, the colder it is. You have everything from -8 8 degrees Celsius all the way down to 32 degrees Celsius down in Helmand. And this area up here gets pretty hot too. So you've got the vast variety of temperatures. You've also got the vast variety of environments, and you can do and grow just about anything, and it just depends on where you are. All right. So next we're going to move into the demographics piece. All right, and the reason I want to talk about demographics is, again, it contributes to culture. It contributes to the development of the culture. So what I did here, when we were first talking about a welcome letter, it was brought up, why don't we translate that into the language? And it would have been a wonderful idea. I wish we could have done it. However, depending on where our family comes from, will depend on which language they're speaking. So I found these two slides. I thought they were pretty interesting to look at side by side. So I went ahead and put an ethnic group map and overlaid it with a languages map. Okay, and what that does is it kind of shows you how the ethnicity and the language feed into each other. Okay, so we're going to start over here with ethnicity. So, and I'll start with the most common, the Pashtun. Okay, so the Pashtun, when you're looking at this map over here, and follow my mouse, we have this thing called Ring Road that goes all the way around Afghanistan. So it goes from Kabul down to Kandahar, around to Herat, up to Mazar-e-Sharif, and a few of them up there, and then pop right back into Kabul. Okay, that's Ring Road. That's primarily how we'd get around if we were dumb enough to be driving on the ground. And but you see the vast majority of these people are Pashto. Right? These are Pashtun people who probably originated from Iran. All right. And so when you go down here then and look at what language they speak, it's Pashto and it's Dari. Okay, so that's why I say when we ran into people, the Pashto and the Dari were the two primary languages that we ran into. Okay, because that's the vast majority. Ring Road, this is where all the fighting was going on. Okay, here, especially over here next to Pakistan. And so we were stuck in Pashto land and Dari land. But when we went into other areas, like for example, up here, the green, who are they? Oh, they're the Turkmen. Oh, well, Lee, look at that. They're right across, you know, the border from Turkmenistan. So what language do they speak? Oh, Turkmen. Okay, so you get up into this region up here, which by the way was where that beautiful green mountain picture was taken. They're speaking a whole different language. All right. Mazar-e-Sharif is an extremely important religious Mecca in Afghanistan. You look at this, it's tan. So that's Uzbek. That's Uzbek. Well, what's to the north? Uzbekistan, right? And what language are they speaking? Uzbek. Okay. And then you go into the further over, now the yellow, the Tajik. So Tajik is spread out all over the place. You've got it, you know, up near Tajikistan, as you would expect. But it's also, you know, in the area, you know, kind of surrounded by Pashto and so on. But what language do they speak? Well, they actually speak Dari. Okay, so your Dari kind of spread out, and really, if you look at that, Tajik spread down and about. Well, so did the Dari. Okay, and then you've got, you know, Ismaili. And what's interesting, what I really love was this part, this little purple blob. Right here. This is really interesting. That's Nuristani. Okay, the Nuristans are another ethnic group in Afghanistan, but when you go over here and look at the language differentiation, it's huge. There's probably 20 languages that they speak just in that one little area. And why is that? That's because that is the gateway between Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's the Khyber Pass. and it is the main thoroughfare for goods and services going between these two countries. Very important place, okay? Also very dangerous place, because that's also how the weapons, and that's how Osama bin Laden got into Pakistan and so forth, okay? So when we're talking about culture and ethnicity in Afghanistan, it's not a one size fits all. It really, really depends on where they come from. But most people can relate to Pashto and Dari. And a lot of people there did start to learn English, especially while the US was there kind of holding the fort down. All right, any questions about this?
Yes, please, Anne, quickly.
Yes.
The 30 million people in Afghanistan, just roughly, how many people are speaking Pashto, for example? In other words, what's the primary language, and does everybody else understand that language?
Right, so there are two primaries. The Pashto and Dari are the two primary languages. And what you do is you stumble around. So when we get more into culture, we'll talk about how tribally oriented these folks are. So them getting outside of their own tribe or their own region is really kind of rare. That's also why I harped on the geography, because the geography contributes to that. It keeps people where they are, unless you're nomadic. So the Pashto and Dari are the two primary languages. So when we are training up soldiers to go over here and be translators for us, we're looking for Pashto and Dari. Okay, and if they're going to be working more towards the Iranian side, we'll also look for Farsi. Okay, so I can't tell you that there is one universal language. When I go and research it with CIA or Wikipedia or whoever, they all say the same thing, that the two primaries are Pashto and Dari.
I've got a question. How was Afghanistan set up? I mean, was it after World War I that the British decided to chop up, Pakistan from India, or has it always been a standalone state?
So their history, I didn't go into a lot of their history, but they go all the way back to Paleolithic era. Afghanistan's been around that long. So they've been through multiple wars, Alexander the Great. So I could put together a separate briefing on that explains how they got to where they are today. But you're right, they've been occupied many times. The Brits failed, the Soviets failed, the US didn't do so hot either. So it's because they're strategic. Okay, we talk about their strategic location. They're right on the Silk Road. They're absolutely a wonderful place to be. And now that we know how valuable the place is, with the raw materials that are underneath the earth there, it may never end for these poor people.
What motivates? Does Iran have any desire in taking the section that's closest to them, and Pakistan taking the Pashto, and because of all the minerals? Or
sure. Oh yeah.
So that's going to be a source of conflict.
Absolutely. Oh okay. Yeah, these guys have been at war either within themselves or with neighboring countries probably their entire existence, or most of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and when you look at old maps of Afghanistan, you see it kind of chopped up, and a bite of it's out of here, or a big bite is out there, and then and then something else happens and they gain that land back. So kind of like the US when we were first developing ourselves, our map changed for quite a few years there until we finally came up with the United States as we know it now. And Afghanistan is in a continual state of change, it seems. I don't know that they've ever gone without having some kind of a war going on in their country. Okay. All right. So following along the line of demographic, we want to speak to religion, because religion is very important in this country. Afghanistan is 99.7% Muslim. Okay. Pretty much all of it. Out of that, the Muslim sects are broke down to Sunni, 90%, Shia, 7%, and then you got another 3% that are non-denominational. Okay, those other religions would include like Sikh, Hindu, Jewish. Until the other day, I understand the last Jewish guy got out of Afghanistan. So now there might not be any Jewish people in Afghanistan, but he was like the one lone Jewish man in Afghanistan, and he left. and Christian. So they've got a population of about 800 Christians who are underground. They do not practice openly for obvious reasons, especially now with the Taliban there. But there is a very, very tiny Christian population in Afghanistan. So are there any questions about the religion? This is a picture of the Blue Mosque. It's in Mazar-e-Sharif. So Mazar-e-Sharif, again, is the spiritual, is kind of the spiritual Mecca. It's like the, you know, like when you're going to Mecca, if you were in the in Saudi Arabia, this is like Afghanistan's Mecca. Okay, so any questions about this? All right, moving on we'll continue on with demographic type information. So urbanization is an important thing to talk about with Afghanistan as well. Afghanistan is a large country, size of Texas. It's only 26% urbanized, however, as of 2020. This is the lowest rate of urbanization worldwide. Okay, and why is it? Why is it that they're not urbanized? Why are not more people not in areas of urban areas? It's due to the refugee situation. There's a refugee problem that's been going on there forever between Pakistan and Afghanistan and a few of the Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, all the stands. Okay, throughout all of them, you have a refugee issue. You've got a lot of displaced people, not only because of the 20 years of war that we just engaged in, but the 10 years prior to that, they had a civil war. So you have a lot of rural migrants, okay? You've got a lot of folks that move around and they don't stay put in one place. So as far as cities go, Kabul is the largest city in the country. It's the capital, it's 4.2 million people. Kandahar is 614,000, so that's your biggest drop. And then below that, Herat is 566,000 and Mazar-e-Sharif is 469,000. So these are relatively small cities. Kabul is a relatively large city, but again, we're talking 30 plus million people in the country. So this shows you how few of them actually live in cities. And another interesting aspect of this population is that they have a 15% nomadic portion of their population. So these are the Kochis. They are on the move with their goats and their camels and everything that they own on the backs of the camels. And you see them all over the place, especially when you're going out into the west, into the Herat region. And if the getting isn't good where they've just set up, they can pack it all up and move somewhere else. Okay, so, and they do. So they have a routine of how they'll go around, and it has to do with the weather because they're trying to stick with the rain. Wherever the water is going, that's where they want to go. And they have the similar document to the almanac. So we have an almanac in the US, tells us what the crops are going to be, the sun and moon positioning and all of that, and how that's going to affect everything. They have one too. So when we got to meet the Kochis, we got to read that, or I wasn't reading it, I was just looking at the pictures, but they do have, they have a guide that tells them, plus their elders will tell them when it's time to move. Okay. And so when we talk about poor people versus rich people in Afghanistan, a lot of people like to say that the nomads are actually the poorest of the poor because they don't own land. But I would argue that they're probably wealthier than a lot of wealthy of the middle class, because when things go badly, they can get out of there. They can pack it up and move it. Okay, and they do often. Okay, but they also come up, they have beautiful crafts. These are some of the best weavers in Afghanistan. You see these beautiful things that they're wearing, you know, so they sell those, and there's quite a market for the garments that the Kochis wear out in the fashion industry. Okay, so being the nomadic is really kind of popular, especially these days. All right, but let's look at some other pictures of what poverty might look like in Afghanistan. Okay, so this is a pretty typical mud hut. All right, this is mostly what we were working out of. This is, you know, you've got some symbols of wealth here, some kind of hard to find, but there are some symbols. Number one, they've got multiple layers of roof over this hut. You can see that it's got plastic and then it's got a layer of mud. Then it's got more plastic. You've got this big plastic kind of tipped out at an angle to get in out of the rain. It gives you a little shade from the sun or from the rain, okay? They've got garments, all right? These don't look like much, but this is a lot of clothing. They got 3 lines of clothing here. This is a lot, okay? They got the ability to wash it and to hang it out. Look at these kids. They're not exactly unhealthy. Look at his chubby little cheeks. This is a cute kid. Look at this kid glaring at us, you know, healthy child. But this is the biggest indicator that these folks are fairly well off. This man is probably about 55, 60 years old. That's old in Afghan age limits. OK, this man, the fact that he's reached old age, this has been a successful family. OK, any questions on that one? So that one, I didn't get exactly where that one was from, but it could have been anywhere. Looking at the background, you got low mountains in the background. You've got a radio antenna back there. They're probably pretty close to a military compound, either Afghan or US.
I wanted to ask a question. The nomads, how are they accepted in the different tribal areas?
They are very well accepted because they bring in things that the regular areas, especially areas that can't raise animals, bring in. Okay, so when they come to town, when the nomads come to town, they're coming in to trade. They're coming in to bring their beautiful weaving. They're coming in to bring sheep skin, wool. They're coming in to bring whatever comes off the camels. So they do make camel hair blankets. I bought one when I was out with them. Beautiful, and it's soft, but it's made out of camel hair. It's not made out of wool. And the goats provide milk and butter and cheese and all of these kind of things. But when they go through the different areas, when they move their way through the different regions, they trade. So, and the things that they can't do themselves because they're nomadic, like growing things, they can't grow a vegetable because they're not going to be there long enough to tend to it. So they'll trade milk and cheese for vegetables and fruit, right? And they'll just keep moving around and doing it this way. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the nomads and the static populations, but also you've got a wonderful trade of culture that goes on in there too, because they're also bringing information. And before the information age hit Afghanistan, which was in 2001, this was one of the ways that they were getting information, was through the nomadic tribes moving around and telling them what they were seeing out there. Okay,
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So yeah, the nomads I thought were fascinating. All right, so relatively poor place to live here. But like when I'd go out to one of my sites, like one of my smallest sites would be like 2 Navy SEALs in a building like this with some antennas sticking up. And I'd be like, how's it going, guys? You know, I mean, that's it. They don't, you know, we have to bring them all their supplies. We have to bring them, you know, they got water. Probably. It looks like they've got a trough here. This is either sewer or a water intake somehow. So yeah, sorry. But so it's, you know, we had a lot of Navy SEALs who lived out of these places, and Delta Force and Special Ops. So got to hand it to those guys. All right.
I have a question for people like the Afghans who live like this in this picture. What is their water supply?
Oh, well, so you got,
I mean, how deep would a well have to be in the desert like this? It's amazing to me that they could get water.
They do. So they have, there's the 3 elder men of the village. You have the religious elder, the educational elder, and the water elder. So there's an elder that basically rations the water out to everybody. Okay, so and yes, they do. So some of the U.S. aid, you know, with the U.S. when we take non-NGOs or non-government organizations over to Afghanistan, one of the big things we're doing is we're going out and we're digging wells, deep wells. Okay, because you're right, in these desert areas, you can go very deep. The first water table may be many hundreds of feet down. You know, so you do need, they don't have the equipment to do that, but that's one of the things that we do is go on the nonprofit side, on the non-military side is do things like wells, school building, medical facility building, and so on. Okay, you're welcome. All right, moving up a step, let's go to Ghazni. So Ghazni was the scene of some pretty heavy fighting. You might have heard about it on the news. It's very important. Its location within southern Afghanistan was extremely important. It's actually located right between Kabul and Kandahar. And so this is kind of an example of your lower income. So you see you've got these kind of rough built dirt houses here. And then you can see kind of a step up. Look how precise this building is. This is still made out of dirt, right? But it's pretty precise. That means they might be mixing something else in it to help it kind of solidify a little bit more. It's got very sharp corners. Well done, very well done. And then you move further out, you start to see some greenery. Well, now you're getting into money, you know, because they've got the money to bring water into these areas. And then you see big house like that. That's a wealthy person. Okay, and you see a large compound here. This is probably a school over here. All right, because you got a field kind of in the middle, and you've got what appears to be kind of like a all the way around, kind of like a compound. Okay, so this is a good example of how lower middle class to middle class would live. It's still dirt, but it's a little bit better. You got power lines. So they got power. You've got, obviously that's stagnant water, but if they've got that there, that means they got a water table probably pretty nearby. And but then you look further out, further, and it just gets right back to desert again, right before you get back to the foothills. Okay, so it's an interesting picture, gives you an idea of how multiple wealth groups would live in the same area. That's Ghazni. All right, moving on. This is Kabul. This is an area of extreme poverty all the way up to extreme wealth. You have kind of a mix of traditional architecture here. Some of the older buildings show some signs of traditional architecture with arches and things like that, and the domes to signify a religious location. And then you got all the way up to very, very modern. Look at this green glass building here. That's very, very modern. This is what we got to look at every day because we were located in Kabul, very near the airport. So these are the soccer fields just on the edge of the airport. Airport would be more towards me, and our base would be off to the left of this picture. So you see these big mountains back here. We were tucked a little more back there. But this gives you an idea. They build on the hillside. They'll build wherever they can get a house to stand up. All right. And then down in the flat area, this probably started out as being a great place for agriculture, nice and flat. You did have water through there, but eventually it just built up to be a city. All right. And then going on to the other end of the extreme, this is an extremely wealthy person's home. Okay, this is not a home. This is a compound. This is a family compound. So I want to point your attention first to the 20-foot walls that are topped with concertina wire. All right. We had military bases that were not this well fortified. All right. And the reason that they do this is because stealing is prevalent throughout the entire country, especially with the Taliban out and their hard line punishment for stealing, cutting off the hand. Once that went away, stealing skyrocketed. All right. You have here a place where you can open these doors and drive a vehicle or vehicles into what is probably a courtyard inside of there, and you can walk through there too. This is the symbol of wealth right here. This is a generator, a big generator, and they can run this entire building off that generator. And if we were to go up and look on the roof, we would probably find a few thousand gallons of water being stored up there so that they can use gravity to feed the water down into the building. Water is not always available in all places, and so one of the biggest businesses over there is water delivery. We saw the same things in Kuwait and Iraq, water delivery to places where there is no water. And they just fill up the tanks and they use gravity to feed it down. So any questions about this? This is a wealthy person, very wealthy. All right, we can talk about the economy a bit. I know this is a lot, but we're just about to the culture part. All right, economy, their GDP in 2018 was 21.7 billion. That's not very much. Their purchasing power parity is 72.9, but when you average that out to individual people, that's $2,024 per person. That's not very much. All right, they're a poor country. They're among the least economically developed countries in the world, which is a shame because they have great people and they have abundant natural resources. They do a lot of their imports from Iran, China, Pakistan, and Kazakhstan. But 84% of their exports go out to Pakistan and India. Hence that craziness at the Khyber Pass, all those languages, all those different cultures, ethnic groups right there at the Khyber Pass. That is a major trading thoroughfare. Okay, big time important. So this is an example of what a rug shop would look like if you were going downtown and you wanted to go buy rugs. So they'll have the rugs, of course, which they make here, but they can also bring in rugs from other places. Since we weren't allowed to go shopping in Iran, I had to have my rug guy go to Iran for me and pick up some beautiful silks, one of which is behind me. This is silk from Iran. And so you also have, you know, like examples of the weaving, which is they have a lot of classic weaving that is situational to the different provinces. Artwork, you have lots of artwork. A lot of people got interested in painting. Of course, clothing, they have beautiful clothing. All that iron and copper in the ground, they can pull out iron and copper all day long and make beautiful metal pieces all day long. So this is a good example of a nice store in the downtown area that you might go to shop, spend a little money, and they love it when you do. All right. So moving on about the economy, let's talk about agriculture and mining. These are the two biggest areas for Afghanistan. Agriculture is the backbone of the Afghan economy. Okay, even though it looks pretty inhospitable, they grow a lot of good stuff in Afghanistan. They grow pomegranates and grapes and apricots and melons and all kinds of fresh and dry fruits and nuts. They can grow nuts there. They've got an arid environment that is just perfect for a lot of things, including opium. Okay, poppies grow really, really well in Afghanistan. They are the world's top producer of opium. This is not a good thing. Okay, we don't want the opium. We would really prefer that they got rid of the opium, but they're also a really good producer of cannabis. Okay, cannabis needs hot, arid, and they can produce cannabis as well. Well, one of the things we tried with the nation building thing that we were over there partially to do was to replace opium with saffron. And we weren't sure how this was going to work out, but as it turns out, Afghanistan is the perfect place, the most perfect place in the world to grow saffron. And they grow the highest quality saffron in the world. So saffron became a really good replacement crop for opium. But now that the Taliban are back, we don't know how that's going to go, because you're not going to make as much money off saffron as you're going to make off opium. Okay, let's just face it. And Taliban needs money, especially if nobody recognizes them as the legitimate government, which I don't think anybody's going to. All right, so it remains to be seen if their saffron crops continue, but they did produce some very beautiful saffron. So up here, the purple flowers, you know, the little stamens coming out of those purple flowers, one or two, that's the saffron. So it's a woman's job really to harvest the saffron. Now let's go into mining. I talked about their natural resources, how valuable they are. They've got all kinds of rare earth elements. They've got just an entire ground full of them. The coal, the copper, the iron ore, lithium and uranium, marble, granite, big sheets of it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. They do have some natural gas and petroleum, but they're not as into that as the rest of the Islamic Brotherhood. They don't get into that as much. I don't think we saw one single oil well the whole time we were over there, which was great. They have a lot of precious and semi-precious stones under the ground. Okay, this pile is lapis lazuli. This is low quality lapis, but they can pull lapis out of the ground that is pure dark blue with no impediments in it at all. They have very high quality lapis over there. And their mineral deposits, like we talked about, are worth about 1 trillion, according to DOD. And that was just a guesstimate. All right. Any questions on the agriculture and mining? Okay. All right, infrastructure, we're going to hit this real quick. This is also important to culture. It shows you how quickly they've moved in the last 20 years. Energy. In 2008, 28% of the people in Afghanistan had energy, reliable electricity. I got there in 2012. By that time, it was about 45%. Okay, we had blackouts all the time. We just got used to it. 2018, you know, fast forward 10 years from here, now 98% have reliable electricity. Why is this? Well, because they're getting more into working with their neighbors to import energy, but also they're looking at how to generate their own, like that hydropower plant that was down in the Helmand region. Okay, they're also moving into solar, biomass, and wind power plants. I firmly believe that if Afghanistan doesn't want to get into tearing up their land and pulling their natural resources out of the ground, this is where they could become an independent money-making nation, right here. They've got so much land. They have so much space that is not really usable for anything else. You could put massive solar farms in there. Those mountains, those through passes of the valleys through the mountains, you want to talk about wind? Wow. And it's all the time. Okay, they don't have they've got good biomass. If they were to dig into the ground and use that as a biomass option, they could do that too. But I really think that solar and wind in Afghanistan would be great, great ideas. Okay, communication, they went from 0 to 1,000 overnight, okay? When the Taliban lost control in 2001, they had no communication system. Okay, hence why it's so cool to have the nomadic tribes come in and tell you what's going on out there. They had they had no established communications. All right, they had no cell phones, they had no phone lines, they had radio, but it was mostly to call out the prayer. For the call out to prayer, they had loudspeakers in each town for the calls to prayer, and so on. Okay, when we got there, one of the first things that happened is they took root with communications infrastructure, and they didn't go back and do the Ma Bell type thing with phone lines and then cable lines and then wireless. Nope, they jumped straight to wireless. All right, so you won't find phone lines in Afghanistan, and you won't find a lot of the older evidence of communications infrastructure that you'll find in the US. They went straight to satellite connectivity, and they went straight into the cellular network. So they jumped, you know, within 20 years, now they've got like 22 million mobile phone subscribers and about 5 million internet users. That's pretty fast. Okay, but they've only got one satellite and they're running out of room on it. So they need more. Again, this really will, it's a wait and see now on how the Taliban will tolerate this. This is a lot of communications compared to what they had before. Transportation. What kind of transportation that they would be? Because, oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Washington, D.C. Sirens, helicopters. Gotta love it. All right, so transportation. Where they're at with their knowledge of transportation and different styles of transportation really depends upon their affluence. Okay, how wealthy were they as a family? They all know what an airplane and a train is. Okay, not too many of them have seen boats because, well, why would they? Cars, motorcycles, buses, if they've gone into any town at all, they would have seen those things. But as we saw, the urbanization is only 26%, right? So the poorer areas, the out in the mud hut areas and the agriculture areas, they're going to be using donkeys and mules and horses and beasts of burden to get their goods around, and the Kochi are going to use their camels. Okay, so you've got the full variety. All the way up to the wealthy who fly in and out on high-speed jets, all the way down to the Kochi nomads who go everywhere on their camels. So when they get here, I think what people on these three infrastructure pieces, what I think Afghans are going to be most surprised at in the US is, number one, the availability and reliability of energy. Okay, that we don't have as many blackouts as they would have. Communications, just the sheer bulk of communications. The fact that you can hook up to the wall and we're at 5G on the phone service and we're at mega gigabit if you're on Ethernet or whatever, that the speed and the reliability of the communications. And transportation, they won't be surprised to see cars, but they'll be surprised to see so many nice cars. Okay, and for along the line of transportation, learning how to drive. will be a challenge for them, because in Afghanistan, it's every man or woman for themselves, and you just get there however you need to get there. Okay, here there are actually rules, so they're going to have to learn those rules. Any questions there? That'll be fun for them. So, any questions there? All right, let's keep going. Education, yay! One of my favorite topics. Afghanistan does have a fully functional Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education. The education covers K through 12, and higher education covers the higher. They go all the way up to terminal degrees in Afghanistan. There's about 16,000 schools in Afghanistan, about 9 million students total. This was before August 15th, however. That breakdown was about 60% male and 40% female. This is a massive improvement over 2001, where almost no females were going to school. The Harvard equivalent in Afghanistan is the American University of Afghanistan. It's located in Kabul. Also, you have Kabul University, which might be like Yale, okay? But two very big, important universities that contribute greatly to the knowledge base of Afghanistan. But every major regional area around the country also has a university. All right, so Kandahar has a university. Herat has a university. You know, you go up into the Jalalabad area, they have a university. So you have a lot of major universities in the country. The Afghan Military Academy was modeled after West Point, and it looks very much like it almost identically mimics West Point. It's a 4-year institution, and all of the training that they go through at the 4 years that the cadets go through all the way through is exactly modeled after West Point. So they did allow us to help them with that, and they have a very good military academy there. So any questions? This all is up in the air now. Unfortunately, the education piece is all up in the air. We're just going to have to see if Taliban want to present themselves as a kinder, gentler Taliban and continue to allow the girls and the women to go to school and to work. I really think that their acceptance in the world stage depends upon this one. This is a big one. You know, I'm hearing mixed reports, and so I try not to concentrate on it too much. It's depressing. All right, so let's keep going. Any questions though about education? Any? Okay, we used to do a lot of volunteer work in schools. We'd go in and take communications equipment. I had a bunch of signal stuff. So we'd go in and we'd wire up the school for IT. You know, we'd give them computers, our old computers. We'd wipe the memory and we'd re-image them with a new operating system. We take those in so that they have a little bit of computers that they can practice on. So we did quite a bit. We did a lot in Korea as well. All right, health. All right, health is an area that leaves a lot to be desired in Afghanistan. They are the 15th least developed country in the world as far as health goes. Health and health services go. The average life expectancy, as we discussed before, is 60 years old. So when you see an older man or an older woman who seems to be in pretty good shape, that's really a blessing. And that speaks a lot to how well their lives had gone throughout their entire life. Mm-hmm. The infant mortality rate is pathetic. It's 112 deaths for every 1,000 live births. So this is terrible. And the maternal mortality rate is also extremely high. So this is one of the things that Doctors Without Borders and USAID has been working on specifically to try to improve these numbers, improve medical availability so that women who are having babies can get the proper care. There are over 100 hospitals in Afghanistan, but your more advanced hospitals are all in Kabul. Okay, if you're very, very wealthy and you need advanced treatment, you're going to go to Pakistan or you're going to go to India. All right. So one of the reasons you have such that high mortality rate is that only 60% of the population lives within a 2-hour walk of a medical facility. Okay, forget ambulances if you're out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, you've got your donkey and your cart, you know, if you can't walk, but if you're walking 2 hours. But that means 40% of the population are even further out than 2 hours. All right, so that's why you have these high mortality rates contribute to the lack of availability of reliable medical centers frequent reliable medical centers. And that's another thing that USA, Doctors Without Borders, and quite a few other people work on in terms of nation building. And due to ongoing wars, the 20 years of our war with the Taliban, and then the previous 10 years prior to that, the Afghan Civil War, you've got about 80,000 amputees. You've got about 80,000 people who are missing one or more limbs. So this is also problematic in terms of economy and social, just the social aspect of not having a limb. All right. Any questions on this one? All right, what y'all came here for, finally. All right, we set the stage for culture. Now we can talk about culture. All right, so just some wave tops about Afghani culture. Culture is regional. Okay, that's why I told you about all the geographic and pointed out all those different regions to you. It's regional, and most Afghans are tribal. So when we talk about their ethnic tribe, their culture is going to be very systemically drawn to that same tribe. They're very closely linked. Family is a mainstay in Afghan society. If you're without family, you're in big trouble. If you're an orphan, you can pretty much hang it up. All right. The family is often headed by a patriarch. All right. Even more important now that the Taliban are back in place. A female-led family without a patriarch could be in very big trouble under the Taliban, because women right now, they're not allowed to go out without a male escort. Okay. So people living in the south and east of the country practice something called Pashtunwali. Okay. And this is the Pashtun way. All right. It has 3 tenets. Number 1 is hospitality. When a guest comes into your house, you give them the shirt off your back, period. Sanctuary for those seeking refuge. And the 3rd is revenge for the shedding of blood. So the vast majority of the areas in Ring Road that we would go through all practice Pashtunwali. So when we would go to someone's home, it didn't matter if they were scraping dirt out of the ground to make tea out of it. They were going to give us whatever they had to eat or whatever they had to drink, and we were going to sit in the place of honor on the floor in their mud hut. Okay. And there's a certain amount of humbleness that comes with that, just, because you don't want them to give you everything that they have, but it's part of Pashtunwali. Okay. It would be insulting to them to not accept it. So this is something wealthy Americans had to get used to, was that these people who are dirt poor are still going to give you everything that they have. So just get over it. Now, other ethnic groups that are different than Pashtun, so let's say Persian or Turkic, they may live close to the Pashtu. So you saw how like the Uzbek and the Pashtu kind of mingled together in certain areas. What will more than likely happen is that those people will adopt the Pashtunwali way of living as well. So it was pretty universal around the entire country that the hospitality was going to be there for you. If you were seeking sanctuary for those who were trying to get out of town, then they were going to give you sanctuary. You might be sleeping out in their barn with their animals, but that's okay. And revenge. Okay. Revenge underlying in the never-ending story of revenge in the Middle East. So Afghans are strongly religious, very religious, and culture is deeply Islamic. One of the biggest mistakes we made as a force out in Afghanistan was we had a pile of Qurans and our soldiers didn't realize what they were, and they burned them. We were burning, paper, piles of stuff. They burned the Qurans, and the Afghans saw them, and the rage was instantaneous and uncontrollable. We couldn't. We basically just sheltered in Kandahar and waited out the storm because they were that angry at us. So it was not good. It was not good. They are strongly religious, and that Quran is a sacred book to them. All right. And tribal solidarity is very important. It's largely due to the difficult terrain. We looked at that terrain. Getting around in Afghanistan is just not easy. Okay. You got to go over those mountains, or you got to go through those mountains, or or way around them. You're going to hit a desert if you're going to do that. Or if you go the other way, you're going to hit massive population. Okay. So Tribal solidarity, very important. All right, art and ceramics. This is where the culture kind of starts to show. Carpet weaving is a big one. This carpet weaving that you see going on right here is traditional Afghan carpet weaving. That's where they weave the carpet, the string through, and then they push them down. This is not like a rug making where they tying individual pieces on like an Iranian rug, but they do that too. Afghans do that too. But these are traditionally women's crafts. And they are province specific in terms of their design. I didn't catch which province this was from, but as we were going all over to the different provinces, one of the most fun and exciting things to do, if it was safe, was to go into the market and take a look at the beautiful weaving. And after a while, you started to be able to recognize, oh, that's Paktiki, or that is, whatever, right? So this was from Jalalabad. This one is from, wherever, Ghazni. And so you started to recognize where the different designs were from. You can do that country to country too. You start getting more familiar with an Iranian rug and how they design versus a Tajik rug or a Pakistan rug. You start to see the differences even country to country, but even region to region within Afghanistan, there were differences. All right, ceramics are another one. Ancient ceramics process. These green ceramics, they've been making these the same for hundreds and hundreds of years. They are beautiful. And with all the natural beautiful iron ores and coppers and lapis and all of these gems that come out of their ground, they can make these fantastic colors. And but this process hasn't changed. One of the biggest areas, so like if you're in Korea, there's going to be places where you go that specialize in making the Celadon pottery. Same thing with Afghanistan. If you go to just north of Kabul to a place called Istalif, you will find that's kind of the mecca for pottery. And so we'd go up there and we'd buy pottery for gifts and whatnot. So those are two of kind of the big exports that also speak to a way to really express their culture and their feelings about things.
And is the carpet weaving traditionally done by women, ceramics traditionally done by men?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Carpet weaving traditionally by women, although I have seen men carpet weavers who are awesome. And then men primarily do working with the kiln and the fire and all of that. Yeah. So, yes. I would imagine though that women, before you fire them, that women would probably be, so they protect women. They do not want them doing dangerous work. Okay. So the kiln part is definitely a male thing, but I would imagine women shape the clay. I would imagine that. That's not dangerous, but it could also be about just a male touch versus a female touch. And but yeah, all the pictures I've found, and anytime we ever went to a clay market or a ceramics market, it was all male. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're moving. We're almost done. Yay! All right, media, entertainment, and music. Let's talk about this one. So before August 15th, they had 350 radio stations, 200 television stations. They enjoyed Bollywood films and music. And there's a reason for this. So Afghan classical music is closely linked to Indian classical music, direct links between the two there. Okay, so it's familiar. Indian classical music is familiar to Afghans, and they will, so they've adopted, they like the Bollywood music because a lot of that is based on classical Indian. The rubab is Afghan's national instrument. So that's this guitar-like thing right here. Beautiful. We went to a big dinner one time and someone played one of these for us, one of the men. I've seen very few female kebab players, but I've seen, of course, a lot of men. And then the atan is Afghan's national dance. So this is part of your Afghan identity. If you are a young man or a young woman in Afghanistan, you learn how to do this dance. and sometimes in the evenings. So Friday is their Saturday. So sometimes on Thursday nights, our Afghan employees would come out into our center of Kabul, our kind of our circle, our square out there where we would eat al fresco or, you know, sit outside for a minute, and they would play the rhubarb. If someone had a rhubarb, they would play the rhubarb and they would dance, and they would show us the atan. They showed us this dance, you know, that we weren't allowed to dance with them, but it was interesting to see it. A very aggressive dance, part of the Afghan culture, but Taliban don't allow dancing and they don't allow music. So I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go, but I would imagine these have survived this long, and they'll continue to survive somehow. All right.
Okay.
All right, cuisine and literature. Woo! These two together are fantastic. The food is great. Okay, Afghan cuisine is largely based on the nation's chief crops. Okay, so they grow wheat, they grow maize, they grow barley, and they grow rice. And those are the big four. No soybeans in that place. All right, and then you add in the native fruits and the vegetables and the dairy and very little meat. They don't eat a lot of meat. It's a predominantly vegetable-based diet. Meat is expensive, and raising meat is expensive, land-wise, money-wise, so they don't do a lot of meat. Kabuli palau is the national dish of Afghanistan. This is a very delicious and easy to make dish. It consists of steamed rice, raisins, carrots, and usually little chopped up, seasoned like lamb or beef. All right, you don't see chickens over there. It's delicious. So when you're looking at this big, beautiful layout of food right here, that is your Kabuli palau right there. Yum. So this is naan right here. This is that bread that we all love to eat. This is a hummus that's got a sour cream in it. There are so many different kinds of sour cream in that place. You would never, they like 100 kinds of sour cream in Afghanistan. Okay. So it's like going to Germany and having a beer. There's a million different kinds of beer in Germany. There's a million different kinds of sour cream in Afghanistan, all goat milk, by the way. Well, some cow, but not very often. Afghanistan is a dry country. You do not drink there. There's no alcohol at all. Not supposed to be. That doesn't mean that wealthy people don't somehow get the alcohol into the country. Culinary specialties reflect the ethnic and geographic diversity. So again, as you move around the regions, you're going to find different dishes. You know, in Germany, there's different regions that have different kinds of beer. In Afghanistan, there's different regions that have like a different kind of naan or a different kind of sour cream, or, you know, and so it's just fascinating. It never ends. And their meals are communal. Okay, so you sit down on the floor. So this is all on a rug on the floor. And what you would do is you would sit down along the edge of the floor on either side of this, and you would just start digging in. Okay. The Afghans are very generous with their food, and the guest is going to get served first and all of that stuff, but you're going to eat on the floor. Okay. That's how they eat. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. Because if you want to lay down and take a nap, that's fine. You know? So eating is a big deal. It's a big family thing, and you better eat. Okay. I don't like lamb, but I choked it down more times than I can count, because it was put on my plate and I had to be very gracious and just eat it. All right.
Lamb.
Lamb? Like, yeah, I don't care for lamb, but they eat a lot of it. All right. So let's move over into poetry. Okay. Until I started my research into Afghanistan, I didn't realize how important poetry is over there. I mean, I had gone to a couple poetry readings, but I didn't realize it was a pillar of education, but it is. All right, so classic Persian and Pashto poetry are cherished in the Afghanistan culture and are a major educational pillar. Okay, so I remember when we would go out to Herat. So the Marines were out in the Herat. It's in the west, it's the desert. It's one of the worst areas, so we gave it to the Marines. And but when we would go into the city to go see the people and do, you know, just social visiting and go have dinner or something, Thursday nights were a again, their Thursday night is their Friday night, really, because their Friday is their Saturday. So Thursday night is the night where we're done working because tomorrow we have off. Okay, so Thursday nights would be poetry night. And you'd go into a meeting place and people would be all gathered around, kind of like this. This is a little more formal because this was the German ambassador, I think, was visiting during this visit. But you would have a poetry reading, and men and women and children would get up and they would speak both the ancient poets and the modern poets. And they would do it in front of people, and it's like a performance. So a very interesting aspect of their culture. I loved it. I loved going to poetry readings. It was a lot of fun. So that's Cuisine and Literature, but they're intelligent people, okay, and they love to learn. And I think our poetry, they'll dig right into our poetry.
Can you run the
What would
I'm sorry?
Could you understand the poetry that was being read?
Oh no, of course not. It was in Dari or Pashto. I couldn't understand a word of it, but a lot of it was the presentation of it. So there are those things that transcend language, the body language, the facial expression. It's a whole package of performing. Yeah.
Like
so
I guess.
Yes, ma'am.
What would be the typical drink or beverage that they would have with their meals?
They would probably do some sort of a steeped tea. They like to take like nuts and sweet fruits and steep them in a tea to make a little sweet drink out of that. Chai tea is very popular. All kinds of tea are actually very popular. Chai is specifically popular as a pick-me-up kind of drink. You know, it's used in lieu of coffee, and believe me, their chai is like nothing you've ever tried here in the US. It'll knock you on your behind, but it was delicious. I loved it. And you add that in with some goat milk and some kind of a sweetener from something. Oh my goodness, delicious, but it'll wake you up.
Ever fermented?
No, they would for storage, yes, but not like for an alcohol purpose. So fermenting, they had to be kind of careful with because of the link into alcohol. So yeah. So all right. So just a couple more here, and so sports. This is interesting. So cricket and association football, or what we call soccer, are the two most popular sports in the country, hands down. Wow. And but they play other sports too, both the boys and the girls. They play basketball, volleyball, golf, handball, boxing, taekwondo, and the whole list right there. And it goes on, depending again on their level of affluence. Where are they in relation to something like a tennis court or a swimming pool or, something like that? They may, they do swimming, they do all kinds of stuff, so they are athletic and active people. The traditional and national, I had to throw this in here because it's hilarious. It appalled me the first time I saw it, but it's the national sport. So the traditional and national sport of Afghanistan is called buzkashi. Okay, so it's similar to polo, and it's where you have two teams of horsemen that each try to steal the goat carcass from each other and throw it into a big hole in the ground. Okay, and as you can see, I put one of the less offensive pictures down here, but you can see they ain't messing around with these horses. Okay, there is nothing gentlemanlike about this sport. I mean, those horses are pushing up against each other, and people are falling off and getting trampled, and people are hanging off the side of their saddle to try to grab the goat carcass. And it's appalling, but it speaks to the abilities of the riders. Okay, these are expert horsemen. Okay, they got to be to be able to survive this game, and but it's a commonly played sport, and it's done at all their like their celebrations and their festivals and things. You're going to have a buzkashi tournament more than likely. Okay, and I had to, because I love dogs, I had to get this in here. The Afghan hound really did originate in Afghanistan. Okay. And they're used in wolf hunting. So some call them Afghan wolfhounds, right? But these dogs are still used for wolf hunting and for other hunting sports. So this is an example of someone who's at a higher elevation with his Afghan wolfhound. You know, looks like they're just buddies. But these dogs are highly prized, and they're highly bred for hunting and running in Afghanistan. So, and that's not, oh, go ahead.
Do they race these dogs?
Well, they race them while they're chasing a rabbit. Yeah. Okay. So whoever catches the rabbit first wins. And but you look at other countries like Saudi Arabia, the big three that a Saudi man will prize will be his Arabian horse, his falcon, and his Afghan wolfhound. Okay. And so children, men, boys learn very young how to handle Afghan wolfhounds. But what is surprising is Afghans don't like dogs, but they're okay with Afghan wolfhounds. So when we would go around with our dogs, German Shepherds, you know, beagles for smelling, oh, they didn't like the dogs. Didn't like the dogs. But Afghan wolfhounds are honored and revered in Afghanistan. Okay. So next, we'll keep going. We're just about done. Holidays and festivals. This is one that came up when Sandra and I were talking quite a few times. So they have a mix of holidays and festivals. They have some that are Afghan specific. They have some that are Muslim specific, and then the other religions within the country do smaller variations on their own festivals as well. And then they have some things that are more internationally recognized. Okay, so your Nowruz, okay, that occurs at the vernal equinox, and that is Afghans' New Year. All right, so that is, it's not a date on a calendar. It's whenever the oops, someone's got an open mic. Okay, so it's whenever that day hits on the calendar. So it'll be music, dance, buzkashi tournaments. Anybody? But this is a big celebration for them. Okay, so Yalda is a celebration that happens at the winter solstice, and it commemorates the ancient goddess Murtha. So this speaks to how old the culture in Afghanistan really is. It's much older than Islam. Okay. And so it goes way back beyond Islam, and they still celebrate quite a few that have to do with ancient goddesses and gods that were celebrated and revered back in like Paleolithic or ancient Afghani times. So for Yalda, families will gather, they'll recite poetry, they'll eat fruits, and they're particularly wanting to eat the fruits or drink the nectar of the red fruits on this holiday, like the pomegranate or the watermelon or the red grapes. Okay, so that's all part of that holiday. Religious festivals are huge. All right, there's the big three for the Muslims: Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, and al-Shura. Okay, so those big three for the Muslims. The Sikh celebrate the Vaishakhi festival, and the Hindus celebrate the Diwali festival. And then you also have other additional festivals that are kind of thrown in there. And these are days of celebration that are both native and international. So Afghanistan does celebrate an Independence Day, just like we do. They celebrate Labor Day. They celebrate Women's Day. So they have quite a few holidays in there that they celebrate as well. All right. So that is kind of the roundup. That took me a lot longer than I thought it would. I'm so sorry for that, but I kind of wanted to lay that foundation before we started talking about culture. I know we wanted to talk a lot about culture here, but I don't think you can really get it unless you have an understanding of their geography, their ethnic, their language, just how eclectic that entire country is, okay, to understand more about their culture. So, any questions?
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Right in the beginning, you mentioned men shouldn't talk to women. And say if we came across, for some reason, I went to a Afghan family and I walked in and said hello to the man, I should not say hello to the woman? Or, you know, we go in like we're hoping to eventually share some of the things that we've purchased with the family itself.
Mhm.
I walk through the front door, say hello to the man, ignore the woman, or what's the protocol?
You'll have to talk to, so again, it depends on where they're coming from. If they're coming from a more city type environment, they're probably going to be a little more comfortable with you talking to the woman. Okay. But I would definitely talk with Lutheran Services about that. Okay, because they should be able to guide you on what the proper protocol is on that. It may shock and offend them at first, but they'll get used to it. You know, so they're going to have to change a little bit too when they get here. We have American culture, American customs that are different, and what you'll find is they'll eventually get to a middle ground. This is what I found with most Afghan families or Middle Eastern families that I know who have relocated here. They get to like a middle ground where they're accepting of certain things of our culture and we're accepting of certain things of their culture. Are they going to be able to hide their wives and daughters in the house? I doubt it. In this culture, I think that's going to be really hard for them to do. And that's one of the things they're trying to get away from, right? They want their daughters and wives to have opportunities. It's one of the reasons they're leaving Afghanistan. I would say just talk to Lutheran Services, or you can just ask them. When you first meet the man, you say, "What may I say hello to your wife?" You know, or something like that. Certainly your wife is going to be able to say hello to the wife. But you ask him, and if he's not comfortable with this, you know, then you don't do it. You know, so.
I know we did volunteer work in Egypt, and I know, and we were in rural parts of Egypt too, and I know it was very important not to touch the woman.
Yes.
So maybe shaking her hand wouldn't be a good idea. I don't know that for sure for Afghanistan, but I know it was true in Egypt.
No, there's a greeting that the Afghans use. It's from the heart. It's basically they place the hand over the heart, and there's like a slight bow or a kind of drooping of the shoulders with it, that kind of head kind of down. It's not like a full bow that you would do in the Far East, but it is, you know, kind of, it basically just says my heart out to you. My heart is out to you, and you can use this with a lot of people, men, women, whoever. You know, when I would come up on the chow line, we had Afghans cooking our food for us, and you'd kind of do one of these to everybody and smile, and they'd, hey, you know. So it's a polite way of greeting somebody without touching them.
Excellent. Hugh McClellan has his hand up.
Yes.
And many thanks for your presentation. It's terrific. My question has to do the refugees that are coming to the States will be overwhelmingly Muslim. And Mike, are there? This is an American asking this. Are there different degrees of Muslim? I mean, are they practicing Muslims, non-practicing Muslims? How? They're deeply religious. So my sense is from your presentation that the people I may meet will be deeply religious Muslim people. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I would assume that they would be. I would assume that they would be. Now, we've had 20 years of anything goes in Afghanistan. Okay, and now they're locking everything back down again to what is considered to be a very radical interpretation of Islam. Okay, so Islam is not like that everywhere. When you go to somewhere like Turkey, or you go to Jordan, we used to spend a lot of time in Jordan. I loved it up there. It was great, you know, the Dead Sea and all of that. And so you had to, but their interpretation of Islam was not near as strict. Women didn't wear the full abaya or the full what they call it, burqa in Afghanistan, but they didn't cover their heads. They let their hair down. You know, men and women could hold hands. Well, Afghanistan was kind of getting to that place where the women were not wearing any headdress. They were wearing their hair down. They were wearing Western clothes. The boys and the girls were holding hands. They were going to school together. So these are all loosening interpretations of Islam. And I don't know if their religious underpinnings because the Taliban went away there for 20 years, if their religious underpinnings just disappeared. I doubt it, because they were still doing the prayers. They were still doing the, you know, the preparation for marriage and the preparation for, you know, growing up and all of these traditions that they have. But there was loosening around the fringes. So I would assume going in that they are strict. I would not assume that they are radical. Okay, radical is really kind of rare, and but I would assume that they adhere to the tenets of Islam, or the pillars of Islam. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. I'm excited for your family coming in. This is, you know, Sandra had such a great point the other day about getting them a journal so they can kind of write down their experience, because this is history making. You know, these are people, you know, who are coming into this country completely changing their world, you know. So it's both scary and exciting for that family coming in.
I think your presentation, Anne, was chock full of all kinds of things that we really wanted to know, even though we didn't have the questions, you know, when, you know, it just laid the groundwork for helping to understand, getting us started in understanding people who we're going to be working with here. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I hope that it helps just give you an idea of the context from which they are coming. That, and once you understand that, and you know, you're going to be fine with this family, because there are certain cultural norms that are pretty much universal everywhere. I've traveled a lot in the military, and there are certain things that are just norms. Honesty, integrity, the whole notion of smiling and saying please and thank you, the polite aspects of dealing with each other, you know, allowing somebody else to go first, you know, these are all universal norms of culture and of manners. Okay, so if you just kind of stick with those things, I think you're going to be fine with this family.
And I just have one question, Ivan Kish. Unfortunately, I didn't catch everything, but I'll watch it on the on the recording. My question is this: we know that there are quite a number of Afghan families already in Jacksonville, quite a few, in fact. And my question is, how have they adapted, and what is their history? Is this a pointer to how the new incomers may behave? Was it a painful process, or was it a relatively, I hesitate to use the word happy one, but you know what I mean.
Yes. So when the U.S. first came into Afghanistan, kind of took the reins over from the Taliban, actually kicked them out, or kicked them up into the mountains, which is where they stayed for 20 years. There was kind of this influx of, okay, we have to go back. Let's go backwards. Let's go backwards to the 70s. Okay. If you ever see pictures of Afghanistan in the 70s, you'll see a very urban, modern, a group of people. You'll see the women dressed in the 70s styles, you know, the short skirts and the high kicky boots and the long, beautiful hair. And you'll see the boys wearing their cool suits, looking all, you know, dapper, and they're intermixed at the university, you know, pictures of the university. One of my favorite artists in Afghanistan, I used to risk my life routinely to go buy art from this guy. He was a formally trained artist in the UK. And when he came back to Afghanistan, when the Taliban were in charge from the 92 to 2001 timeframe during the Civil War, they would routinely destroy his artwork because they didn't want him drawing live figures. Okay, there's some question about whether live figures are allowed and like that. So Sandra and I talked about that. I would say just veer away from that. No stuffed animals, no toys with faces, you know, but you could do other things like, you know, pillows that are cute, like a rainbow or some, you know, whatever. But just stay away from things that would be alive. Okay, just until we find out for sure a little more about that one. That's a sticking point. But my artist and I, you know, we'd go there, we'd sit down, we'd have tea. You know, I'd bring in my team of SEALs and they'd all be sitting around the back, you know, with their weapons and growling at the poor guy. And, you know, it's like, calm down, I want to buy some art. And, but he would, you know, he'd lay out the art pieces and I'd buy, you know, a few. I really wanted to get him back here for an art show. His work was just amazing. And, but he brought out his one time he brought out his photo album. And he showed me all these pictures from the 70s of them and what an affluent and wonderful place it was. You know, very modern, very, very posh and very just kind of just right on the cutting edge of the 70s, you know? And so I'm like, what happened? And he said, the Taliban happened and yanked us back into the Stone Age. And so that's going to happen again, more than likely. So they've had 20 years. You've got entire generations now who know nothing except U.S. occupation time. Okay, when the U.S. was there and kind of, you know, battening down the hatches and allowing them to grow and experience a freer life. So it's going to be very difficult to yank those people backwards. But I think that you've got. So anytime that you're changing big, you know, to get back to your question, anytime you're making big cultural changes like that, it's got to be difficult. I mean, just going to visit, I was stressed out. And of course, going around to all the different provinces, I mean, I'd be up 2 nights in a row studying whatever province I'm going to go to and whatever province I'm going to have to go through, you know, to understand where am I going and what's the norm and, you know, how do you say hello and what's the cultural norm for everything, right? So that you don't go in there and make a fool of yourself or even worse, insult them, which is, we all know that's not a good idea. So them coming here, I'm sure it was a lot of shock. The amount of freedom that we have here is shocking. And what I found with the Middle Eastern families is they find a happy medium. They find a happy medium in there. Some of them are more westernized than others in terms of how they dress. But when you get into their homes and you get to talk to them as a family, what you'll find is that those core religious values are still very strong. Okay. So they're not gonna really let go of those. All right. At least not that I've experienced. But I'm sure it's gonna be difficult for them. You know.
Oh, the children are going to become American.
Yeah, they will. They will, and that won't set well with the elders. You know, we hear every now and then the horrible stories about the honor killings, about young girls who are set up in an arranged marriage, and because they're so westernized, they're like, nope, not going to do this. And you know, the males of the family, you know, when a girl does that in Afghanistan, it's devastating to the family. So they only have one choice: they have to kill her in that culture. You know, but over here, you know, we tend to like to date and get to know people before we marry them. But over there, it's the arrangements are purely they're for reasons of tying families together and tying assets together, just like in, you know, 16th century England. You know, a marriage is a contract. It's not a perpetual tryst. You know, you're marrying for a reason. There's a legal reason why you're combining assets of families.
Well, there was a reason for your independence after all.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, especially the child marriages, where they're marrying girls off at a very young age. That's just horrific. You know, for the girls, and those end up in divorce more times than not.
Of course. Thanks, Anne. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions for Anne or anyone else?
Fascinating. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're very, very grateful.
And thank you. I learned so much, and the images are so beautiful. And we really appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.